Most countries are built on land. The Netherlands was built against the sea. Today, millions of people live in a country where large areas lie below sea level. Homes, farms, highways, and entire cities exist in places that should be underwater. For centuries, the North Sea has threatened this nation with powerful storms and rising tides. But instead of abandoning their land, the Dutch made an extraordinary decision. They would fight the sea with engineering. They built massive dikes, giant flood barriers, powerful pumping stations, and one of the most advanced water management systems ever created. But none of these incredible structures existed when disaster struck. On a cold winter night in 1953, the sea broke through the country's defenses, changing the Netherlands forever. That single night would inspire one of the greatest engineering projects in human history. This is the story of how the Dutch refused to surrender to the ocean. Welcome to Engineura, where we explore the incredible engineering achievements that have shaped our world. Our story begins on the night of the 31st of January, 1953. As darkness fell over the Netherlands, a powerful North Sea storm was gathering strength. Hurricane-force winds pushed enormous waves toward the Dutch coastline, while an unusually high spring tide steadily raised the sea level. Across the country, most families had already gone to bed, unaware that one of the worst natural disasters in Dutch history was only hours away. The aging dikes, built to protect towns and farmland from the sea, were never designed to withstand such an extreme combination of wind and water. Under relentless pressure, cracks began to appear. Then, one after another, the dikes gave way. Millions of cubic meters of seawater surged through the breaches, swallowing roads, farms, and entire villages within minutes. In the darkness, with electricity and communication failing, thousands of people were trapped as...
When daylight finally broke, the true scale of the disaster became clear. More than 1,800 people had lost their lives. Thousands of homes had been destroyed, and entire communities were left underwater. Survivors waited for hours on rooftops, while fishermen, soldiers, volunteers, and rescue teams risked their own lives to reach those trapped by the freezing floodwaters. The tragedy shocked not only the Netherlands but the entire world. Newspapers carried heartbreaking images of the devastation, and international aid soon arrived to support the recovery. For the Dutch government, this wasn't just another natural disaster, it was a national wake-up call. Simply repairing the broken dikes would never be enough. If the Netherlands was going to survive, it needed a completely new way to live with the sea. Within weeks of the disaster, the Dutch government assembled the country's best engineers, hydrologists, and water experts to answer one critical question: how could they make sure this would never happen again? Their answer became known as the Delta Plan, one of the most ambitious flood protection programs ever attempted. Instead of simply rebuilding the damaged dikes, they decided to redesign the entire coastline. The plan called for stronger sea defenses, shorter coastlines, and a network of massive dams, flood barriers, locks, and reinforced dikes working together as a single system. It was a project that would take decades to complete, cost billions of dollars, and push engineering far beyond what many believed was possible. The first step toward protecting an entire nation was already waiting, a colossal barrier that had changed Dutch history long before the flood of 1953, long before the Delta Plan became reality. Dutch engineers had already completed one of the most ambitious water projects in history, the Afsluitdijk. Stretching 32 kilometers across the former Zuiderzee, this massive dike transformed a dangerous inland sea into the freshwater IJsselmeer. Built with millions of tons of sand, clay, and stone, it stood as a remarkable achievement for its time. When the devastating flood of 1953 struck, the Afsluitdijk proved just how valuable large-scale flood defenses could be. It helped shield the northern part of the country from even greater destruction, and gave engineers confidence that bigger, smarter projects could protect the rest of the Netherlands. It wasn't the final solution, but it showed the nation that the sea could be challenged and even controlled. Inspired by the success of the Afsluitdijk, Dutch engineers turned their attention to an even greater challenge. The Delta Plan was no longer just an idea. It had become the largest flood protection project in the country's history. The goal was simple but extraordinary: shorten the coastline, strengthen vulnerable areas, and build a system capable of protecting millions of people from future storm surges. Construction crews worked for decades, building massive dams, reinforced dikes, locks, and movable storm surge barriers across rivers and estuaries. Every project solved a different problem, but together they formed one powerful defense system. At the heart of this engineering masterpiece stood its most ambitious creation, a barrier so advanced that it could stop the sea while still allowing nature to breathe. The Oosterscheldekering became the crown jewel of the Delta works, and one of the most advanced flood barriers ever built. At first, engineers planned to completely seal the estuary with a solid dam, but fishermen and environmental experts warned that doing so would destroy the unique ecosystem and fishing industry. So the design was completely reimagined. Instead of a permanent wall, engineers built a movable storm surge barrier stretching nearly 9 kilometers across the water. Supported by 65 massive concrete piers and 62 giant steel gates, it normally remains open, allowing tides, fish, and ships to pass freely. But when a dangerous storm approaches, the gates close, turning the barrier into a powerful shield against the sea. It was an engineering breakthrough that inspired the next generation of flood defenses. Even after the Delta works transformed the coastline, one major challenge remained: protecting the port of Rotterdam, one of the busiest harbors in the world. A permanent barrier wasn't an option because thousands of ships needed access every year. The solution was the Maeslantkering, a pair of enormous floating gates, each nearly 210 meters long. Under normal conditions, the gates rest safely beside the waterway, allowing ships to pass without interruption. But when dangerously high water levels are forecast, the gates automatically swing into position, fill with water, and settle onto the riverbed to block the incoming storm surge. It's one of the largest moving structures ever built, combining advanced engineering with full automation to protect millions of people and one of Europe's most important ports. But Dutch engineers didn't rely only on massive steel barriers. In places where traditional floodgates weren't practical, they created something entirely different: the Ramspol barrier. Instead of giant steel doors, this unique system uses a huge inflatable barrier made from incredibly strong rubber and synthetic fibers. Most of the time, it rests hidden below the water. But when water levels become dangerous, the barrier fills with air and rises within minutes, creating a temporary wall against the flood. It's a simple idea with extraordinary engineering behind it, proving that the best solution isn't always the biggest one. Today, projects like the Ramspol barrier work alongside dams, dikes, and storm surge barriers, forming a nationwide flood defense system that protects millions of people every single day.
The Netherlands' battle with water never truly ends. As sea levels continue to rise and storms become more unpredictable, engineers are constantly improving the country's flood protection system. Thousands of sensors monitor water levels around the clock, while satellites, weather forecasts, and powerful computer models help predict dangerous conditions days in advance. But the Dutch have also learned that fighting nature isn't always the answer. Instead of building higher walls everywhere, they have created more space for rivers to safely overflow, reducing pressure during extreme weather. This approach works with nature instead of against it, making the country even more resilient. Today, the Netherlands remains one of the safest delta regions in the world. Not because the sea has become weaker, but because its engineering has become smarter.
More than 70 years have passed since the devastating flood of 1953, but its lessons continue to shape the Netherlands every single day. From the Afsluitdijk to the Delta Works, from the Oosterscheldekering to the Maeslantkering and the Ramspol barrier, every structure stands as a reminder of what can happen when nature is underestimated and what humanity can achieve when it refuses to give up. Today, millions of people live safely below sea level, protected by one of the most advanced flood defense systems ever created. The Netherlands didn't defeat the sea. It learned how to live with it. And perhaps that's the greatest engineering lesson of all, not conquering nature, but understanding it, respecting it, and building a future where people and water can exist together. This is Engineura, and we'll see you in the next incredible engineering story.